11 games into the MLS regular season, and boy, they don't come much bigger than this for the New York Red Bulls on Sunday. Hello there, this is Kristian Dyer, and this is the first ever Red Bulls Insider podcast on MSG Networks. Really excited to be joining everybody and be giving a little bit of an inside view into the New York Red Bulls. Well, we all know Sunday is going to be a glamour marquee match. It's been that way since the league started in 1996. And anytime New York and Los Angeles meet in any sport, it's hyped up. You got West Coast, East Coast, Hollywood versus Times Square. But these sports teams from these markets don't seem to like each other, and I don't think that's any different in MLS. And going back to the old Metro Stars days in 1996, those were some big matches for the inaugural league. And this match on Sunday is certainly pitting two teams kind of in opposite directions right now. Yes, the Red Bulls, 2-game losing streak, but come into this series with an awful lot of momentum. They had a three-game homestand in late April, set them up with 9 points, took them now currently above the red line in the Eastern Conference, really made the most from that 3-game homestand, taking points away from Eastern Conference teams. DC United, who's been a tough team in the conference over the past few seasons. The Columbus Crew, a team that 2 years ago was in MLS Cup final, looks to be on the upswing again. They're a team right now, if the playoffs started today, would be a formidable foe. They would be in the postseason. And then a week ago, the Chicago Fire, a vastly different team this year, looking nothing like the team that they were a season ago when they held up the Eastern Conference in the cellar of the conference. A team that right now, again, if the playoffs were to start today, 6th seed, they would be in the postseason. So an important homestand and then a little bit of a disappointing past week for the Red Bulls. Against Sporting Kansas City, starting a lot of players who would be considered bench players, players with very few starts. Strong start to the game, but really the final 70, 75 minutes, they struggled in that match. And the 2-0 scoreline very much deserved. They followed that up then, going from Kansas City to Philadelphia, a 3-0, and you gotta say, it was a drubbing at the Philadelphia Union. It was a match where they had some opportunities early on, really kind of seemed to get frustrated in front of goal, then some defensive breakdowns, miscues. We saw the first mistake from center back Aaron Long, first year starting in MLS, first ever MLS appearance this year in the season opener. Also made his first mistake, and he'll own up to that, but certainly the wheels kind of coming off for the New York Red Bulls in the final 15, 20 minutes of that match. They've got the opportunity to rebound now against a Galaxy team that struggled but has a little bit of momentum now coming into Red Bull Arena on Sunday. Last weekend, down 2-0 before halftime, struggled and fought back to get a very important 2-2 result against a Fire team that is much improved this year over last year. But LA right now in some uncommon territory. They're below that red line. They are a team that, without Bruce Arena as head coach, now with the U.S. national team, no Steven Gerrard, no Robbie Keane, no Landon Donovan, who made a brief comeback last year. I don't know what this Galaxy team is in terms of their identity. They have a coach in Kurt Anolfo who doesn't have the best track record as a head coach in MLS. Are they a team built for now? Are they a team revamping, retooling? They've got that strong academy system. They have a USL team stocked with young, promising talent. Are they a team that's really kind of going through the throes of rebuilding? And I think you're seeing that conundrum that they're in. Yes, they have the high-priced players such as a Giovanni Dos Santos, the Mexican national team star, but also they're trying to bleed in a lot of young talent, and they're doing so without their bedrock of Bruce Arena, who has been so pivotal for this Los Angeles Galaxy team over the past few years, all the success they've had, he held them together, whether it was the superstars, whether it was bringing through the young players. And now without Arena, we don't know who Los Angeles is. And I think that's going to be the struggle for the Galaxy this year. What is their team identity and who is their team identity? And they come into Red Bull Arena struggling. 9 matches so far this year, just 8 points to show from it. And they go up against a Red Bulls team that has been so strong at home. They're a team that hasn't lost at home so far this year. They had 1 draw, and all the rest were wins to date now at Red Bull Arena, a place that they've turned into a fortress. And 4-0-1 at home, 1-5-0 on the road. That single win coming in the season opener at Atlanta United, a team that certainly came out with a lot of emotion, but dominated that match against the Red Bulls, who fought back, showed a lot of resilience, much to their credit, but road points have not come for the Red Bulls since then. And you talk about whether this is a playoff team. I think you look at the Eastern Conference, the Red Bulls are a cut above a number of the teams that are below them right now. Atlanta's been hot cold. We talked about that. DC United is a physical team, an athletic team, but a team that's been short on playing actual quality soccer so far in their final year at RFK Stadium. The New England Revolution, they seem to be in a bit of turmoil up there. Goals have been hard to come by for the Revolution throughout much of the season. And the Montreal Impact, they've had struggles. That's a team, I'm not sure their identity. And the Philadelphia Union got their first win this past weekend over the Red Bulls, but certainly a team that is short on dynamic players in the final thirds. I think they're missing Vincent Nogueira perhaps a little bit more than they thought they were going to. So the Red Bulls right now sitting in 5th place in the Eastern Conference. They're going to be a playoff team. When it's all said and done, when the regular season's wrapped up, they will be a team in the postseason. But what is the ceiling for this current team? And you look at the teams at the top of the Eastern Conference right now. Toronto FC, Orlando City, New York City, 1, 2, 3. Those are teams that they're high-spending teams, but they're teams with dynamic difference makers. And I look at this Red Bulls roster right now. There are some star players in MLS. A Bradley Wright Phillips coming off a 24-goal season for the Red Bulls. First ever player in league history to score more than 20 goals twice in a season. He's a difference maker. Sacha Kljestan, we saw him get back into the national team last year. A finalist for MVP. He can be, when he's on, a difference maker. We haven't necessarily seen that Sacha Kljestan so far this year. But outside of that, who are the players who are going to step up come playoff time to be at the level of a Josie Altidore, Jovinko, a Michael Bradley for Toronto FC? For Orlando City, they have a Kaká and a Kyle Larin. Those are elite, dominant players in MLS. And I think if this team is going to repeat or three-peat for the Eastern Conference title, if they're going to be a team that's going to challenge for the Supporters' Shield, if they're going to be a team that's finally going to make that push to MLS Cup, which they haven't done yet in year number 3 under Jesse Marsh, they need to find this summer transfer window that difference maker. He's got to be someone who elevates like a Jovinko does, like a Kaká, even like a David Villa for New York City. He's got to be a player who can come in and make everyone else around him better. And I think to their credit, the Red Bulls last offseason, or rather during the midseason, they brought in a player in Daniel Royer who's a very good winger. But with all due respect to a Daniel Royer, is he a game changer? Is he someone in those pivotal moments that's going to bag the necessary goal, that's going to make the move, that's going to set up this team? So I still think this team is lacking that in the final third. They're also lacking an awful lot of depth at the center back position. They need to make sure that they can bring in somebody at central defense who's not only going to be able to spell an Aaron Long, an Aurelian Collin, a Damian Perenelle, but can step in and be rock solid in the heart of defense. They've got the allocation money. They're going to be able to make the space. Now it remains to be seen if they can bring in 1, if not 2, impact players, guys who can take them from being a good team in the Eastern Conference to a dominant team in the Eastern Conference. Shifting gears, it's going to be an exciting show for you here in our first ever Red Bulls Insider on MSG Networks. We're going to have Chris Armas, Red Bulls assistant coach, a mainstay with the Chicago Fire for a number of years in MLS, a star with the U.S. national team, someone who knows the pyramid of U.S. soccer from his days as a standout player at Adelphi University in college, played for the Long Island Rough Riders, won a championship alongside Tony Meola, Jim Rooney, Giovanni Savarese, a stacked team in what was then a minor league team in U.S. soccer before the advent of MLS, and then someone who went on to have success first with the Los Angeles Galaxy, may not have remembered that about Chris Armas, and then with the Chicago Fire, and of course, over 60 appearances with the United States national team. So it's always great to talk with Chris Armas, has such great insight and some such great thoughts, a cerebral player on and off the field, and someone with a really, really good trajectory. He's going to be a head coach in MLS someday. So it's a pleasure now to be joined by Red Bulls assistant coach Chris Armas. He's going to be our inaugural guest here on Red Bulls Insider Podcast on MSG Network. So Chris, no pressure, but anyone who follows you is going to have to live up to this standard.
Okay, hopefully I can set a high standard here.
Red Bulls are facing, kind of a pivotal game now, the first third of the season. Los Angeles Galaxy on Sunday night at Red Bull Arena. What does this game mean in the grand scheme of things when last homestand you had 3 matches, 9 points, really strong, a little bit of a disappointing week there against Kansas City and then the Philadelphia Union?
Yeah, look, it shapes up to be another big game at home for us because we haven't gotten the results that we've wanted to on the road. Puts a little bit more pressure at home, but it's home games in MLS and home games at Red Bull Arena are a different animal. So, look, we as always, we take it one game at a time, but we're putting a big emphasis on getting 3 points at home and just keep moving the team forward in the right way.
What do you make of this Los Angeles Galaxy team? It's been a little bit of a down year for them to start the year. Perhaps a little bit of momentum after the way they clawed back against the Chicago Fire this past weekend.
Yeah, no, I've looked at them closely. One of my responsibilities is to scout the opponents, the upcoming opponents, and I've looked at them closely. And they're a dangerous team because they have dangerous players. They're attacking, whether it's, Jermaine Jones is out with a knee injury, and listen, but Dos Santos he's an interesting player, capable, good left foot. Zardes, we know him very well from the national team at his time in L.A. Alessandrini is a lefty that plays on the right, and Boateng is a lefty that plays on the left, and he's quick, and each guy has something different, but they pose a different threat than a lot of the teams. They're with those attacking 4 guys, their mobility, their interchanging positions, unpredictability, talent, cleverness, speed, guys that can make final passes, shots from outside the box. So with Ashley Cole coming forward from the left back position, they're a tough group to handle. I've seen it in all the opponents. And look, you mentioned earlier, we're catching them at maybe a time where they got some good team spirit. They've rallied back last week against Chicago, and they'll be coming in on a high. But I know they'll be prepared to be up for a tough game as well.
How much of their early season struggles do you think, Chris, has been the fact that they're transitioning from the post-Bruce Arena era? Or is it that they've got so many new pieces, new identities? You mentioned Jones, the new pieces in defense. Dos Santos now in his first full season in MLS, maybe trying to figure out how to utilize him. What is the balance between those two things?
Yeah, look, I think it's always tricky with a new manager in place, and listen, the LA Galaxy now without Bruce at the helm and his staff. Listen, let's call it a new era with Kurt Analfo. I know him well, and we were teammates back with the LA Galaxy in '96. he's a good soccer guy, sees the game in a good way, and it's a good leader and motivator. Look, what I'd say about this, life without Bruce, but it's also life without guys like Robbie Keane, Landon Donovan, because he was obviously, in the mix last year, but even having him in the locker room, it's a big presence. So even Steven Gerrard, right? So think about the quality that they don't have this year compared to last year. So guys like Robbie Keane, again, these guys are getting you a goal a game, and life is a lot easier. So now you remove big personalities, other guys need to step up, and it's just a different challenge. But it's early. They're a good team. I do think they'll find their way. They have a great home field advantage typically, and still a lot of talent.
And people so often associate you and your career not only with the U.S. national team, but with those Chicago Fire teams and how pivotal you were in the midfield for those Fire teams. But I think we often forget, looking back, that the first 2 years of your MLS career were spent with the Los Angeles Galaxy. When you're selected in that expansion draft in 1998 by Bob Bradley, what's going through your mind? You're leaving a very successful Los Angeles team for a bit of an unknown with Chicago.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I the one constant that I knew, listen, I mean, in L.A. the first 2 years, I worked my way in the first preseason of '96 into the starting lineup, and Lothar Osiander was the head coach and who drafted me. He gave me the opportunity. I was a starter from the start of the season that first year and a fixture on the team. And I was very happy. One, because I was playing. I'm a young guy playing as a pro, and then with guys like Kobe Jones, Mauricio Cienfuegos, Greg Vanny, Ante Raza, we had a great team. And also we were a winning team. Right? We went to MLS Cup in '96. We had a really good roster. So in many ways, I didn't want to leave. But when the opportunity presented itself after year two with Bob Bradley, who I knew, and I knew so many good things about him, I was in a situation where I was protected via the expansion draft was coming up in '98, and I thought, listen, I did get protected by LA, so I didn't think I could go anywhere. Not knowing too much about how the rules worked, I figured out, right, listen, I was one of the few Americans they protected, so I'm happy, great, I'm staying in LA. When I had the opportunity, though, I said, listen, if LA is willing to move me, I'm willing to go. So I knew that there would be some discussions, and if Bob could figure that out, and then in the end, my thinking was, listen, I'm very happy, but if LA is willing to move me, and Bob, who I know and trust, and I know good things, and I heard about Peter Novak and Lubos Kubik and the new training facility that was going to be, their home where the old Chicago Bears used to train. Like, it seemed like a really good fit. So Bob worked magic, if you will. He worked some things, and the next thing, I'm in the off season in between the '97 and '98 season. I made the move to Chicago.
And I remember the headlines at that time, and everyone's saying Jorge Campos traded to the Chicago Fire, right? But you ended up becoming the mainstay of that trade, and really such a good fit in that midfield. How comfortable did you feel early on when you had a guy like a Nowak, like so many other pieces around you, to just kind of let you just settle in and play your role?
Yeah, look, I didn't at the time. I didn't think too much about what how I can reflect on it now. At the time, I knew I was getting traded to a team that was an expansion team. It'd have some challenges ahead of it, but I knew that there was some big pieces there. I knew Bob Bradley very well, again, the incredible coach, coming from winning cultures everywhere he's been. Peter Novak, successful in the Bundesliga, national team. He was, for me, he's one of the greatest players ever to play in the league. Lubos Kubik, his experience, so my thinking was, I know I'm valued. I know I'm coming in now with a couple of years of MLS experience under my belt. I know that now let me just continue what I'm doing. For me, it's always just trying to be you on the field. So I knew that Bob appreciated some of the things I was doing as a maybe a true number 6, a ball-winning, holding midfielder that can can win that part of the field and break up plays and then facilitate life for Peter Novak and some of the, Pobrozny, some of the attackers. So for me, it was never about trying to do more than what I could do. And every single day, try to be consistent in what I was doing. So I didn't think too much about, the new role, what I had to do different, but just every day trying to give everything.
And it's really ironic when you look back at those teams. Peter Nowak coached in MLS, now coaching in Poland. Kubik is now coaching in the Czech Republic, I believe. You're an assistant coach. Jesse Marsh is your head coach with the Red Bulls. I mean, that was a team that was not only talented, but had to be a coach's dream out there from a mentality and from a soccer IQ perspective.
Listen, you only, when we were going through it, we knew we had something special. It just felt right. It felt good. In '98, we won the double, right? It was incredible. It was incredible. And it wasn't lucky. It wasn't one of these things that just fell into place. Bob Bradley pieced this thing together it was strategic, clever, maybe it was incredible. That list that you just talked about, Jimmy Curtin, part of that early years of Chicago, head coach. Now, Sorber came through, assistant coach. Josh Wolf on staff. Ante Razov on staff. Zach Thornton. And when you look around the league and so many of these guys that were part of those early teams, that I think the common denominator is it was the best way to describe it was just, there was talent for sure, but it was just a real environment for learning, a real environment for competing, a real environment for winning. And I think everyone's kind of taken those experiences and made it their own and maybe, influenced other environments where we've all gone.
You mentioned that 98 team, expansion team, winning the double, MLS Cup, US Open Cup. It's a much different MLS now than those years. Do you think we'll ever see an expansion team hoist a trophy again in their first year?
Listen, I think it's getting harder, right? I mean, the league, with the amount of teams and the amount of depth on teams and as hard it is to piece together the rosters, I bet it happens. It's hard to say that it won't because so many records are broken and so many incredible things happen in sport. But even when you see Atlanta off the start, now things have slowed down a little bit, but they're well coached. They have talent. They have a distinct playing style that I think is suitable for winning. Minnesota's picked it up a bit, but Atlanta for sure looks like they could beat anybody in the league. So the trick is, as you know, in our league, to make the playoffs. And if you do that, then it's a few games, and some of those games are home. So the way the playoff structure is set up, I do think it's possible.
What effect, and you mentioned him a few moments ago, what effect did Bob Bradley, the head coach, have on Chris Armas, now the MLS assistant coach with the Red Bulls?
I just think Bob, showed me the way to work, and he had. I think he, along with the details, because he was so detailed with not just in video, with his messaging during a session, with the video following games and teaching moments. In all ways, the realness that he brought every day and the workman's-like mentality. I think that's what I took with me. That no matter where I've gone now, whether it's coaching college, coaching pros, that it's, can I connect with people? Can I be honest with people? I mean, Bob was so honest, but he never put you down. He had such a good way to manage. So I think some of it's kind of inherently how I'm wired, but I think I took that from Bob, that as hard as he could be on you at times, you knew he loved you, and I think I try to impart that on the players that I am now coaching. And then, again, I've been around some great coaches, and one of the things that Bob, maybe did differently from so many, his work ethic was incredible. It was tireless. So when you talk about now creating a real environment with the work ethic and then the honesty in the details, for me, those are some core principles that I've taken with me.
And you had the opportunity earlier this season when Jesse Marsh was in Europe briefly for a couple days to take on the head coaching duty with the Red Bulls. How do you blend, and it's got to be a challenge, Chris, but how do you blend your style, your temperament, with also doing and enacting what a head coach wants to get done during those training sessions?
So if I'm the assistant coach on the day, which is my role, I mean, I'm always trying to be that, to complement Jesse's voice, and be that, Jesse's a big personality. So I have to, try to help him stay on top of the details. And I know what his expectations are on the day, and I'm trying to, pick up anything that he might forget, any loose end, to tie up the details, and almost unnoticeably just help him be really good at what he does. Now, I have other roles within the team, but I'm that in between as an assistant coach. You're that in between voice. You're that in between, person on the staff that is connecting with the players and just being that link between the players and Jesse. Now, when I filled in for the few days, I mean, now it's a different role. So immediately you have to stand in front of the group, and they have to see. They know that I'm the assistant coach, but they know that, okay, they're looking at you too. You're almost on trial, and they're looking at you and how you're going to talk now, and it ends up being very different. I stand up in front of the group, and they hear me in a different way. All the guys know that I'm a lighthearted guy, and I can, I'm maybe a breath of fresh air at times, but at the same time, I mean, I have the standard of what things should look like every day. I'm not there to joke around. I'm there to accomplish something and get the work done. So immediately then you put on a different hat, and I don't claim, I'm not putting on an act to be like, oh, now I'm the head coach for it. But it's just, okay, so now I'm the guy in charge for a few days, and we have to get work done. So I think trying to balance out, just listen, to keep things moving and keep it afloat while Jesse's gone was the goal.
And is being a head coach, and I know you were a head coach at Adelphi University with the women's program, is being a head coach something you would like to pursue at some point in your career? Yeah.
I'm when I signed up for this, it was Jesse, gave me the call and to be an assistant on his staff, and I thought hard about it, and I wasn't looking to be an assistant coach for the next 10 years. So I know I have a lot of ideas of my own and want to test myself at some point here, but I'm not just I don't want to just be on a staff for the next so many years. So at some point, I want to test myself in that way and challenge myself as a head coach.
Well, that's going to mean you putting on a suit and standing in front of people like me at press conferences. Are you prepared for that, Chris? I mean, you like your track pants, you like your shorts.
Yeah, listen, I can put on the suit and dress up and play that part. It's obviously part of the job. And look, I think again, addressing the media with pertinent information and to give insight into what we're trying to do and be that's important, and it's part of the job. And then, listen, I understand the life as well as a head coach and the pressures that come with it, and then that things there's 5-game losing streaks that you have to deal with, and it's not always rosy. So listen, the way dealing with media, it's like I do anyone else in my life. They're people, and I think I can deal with people in a good way.
Now, one of the roles you have on the team is, I see frequently after practice, the younger players coming to you to get extra work in, to get things done. How satisfying is it to see so many of the guys who have come through the academy in particular, Sean Davis, Derek Etienne, Alex Wheel, after a tough training session, and these are long training sessions that you guys put the guys through, then say, hey, I need a few more minutes of finishing, or I want to work on my individual defending?
These guys, I drive 52 miles each way to work, and the guys that we have on the team, and you named a bunch of them, these guys make the drive and make my job enjoyable. They're inspiring, and they give me energy. I also get to address the mental side of the game with these guys, and I'm always working on that part of it, trying to instill confidence and belief in themselves, because with sometimes, not just young guys, but with many guys, there's doubt and self-doubt that comes along with it. So I love that part of it because I consider myself not just a mentor but a teacher. So when working after training with guys about finishing, it goes back to the details and the little things about shooting low and maybe calming down and slowing down your body, stutter stepping to unbalance the goalkeeper. So some little things. Not that I was ever the best finisher, but I think I picked up on the nuances. So to see Derek Etienne score a goal in for his national team, or to see some of these guys perform at USL, and see Alex Mule and Tyler Adams, Sean Day, and the list is long, to see them do well, and to know that I'm playing a small part in that success, I love it. I love it.
Well, Chris, we're going to wrap things up, but before you go, we got to ask, you're born in the Bronx, lived in Long Island, now working in New Jersey. Better slice, a New York slice or a New Jersey slice? And I have to ask this because we run into each other at Nino's Pizzeria frequently before Red Bulls games at Red Bull Arena. So New York versus New Jersey slice, go.
Sorry, New Jersey, but my heart belongs to New York. Ciro's Pizzeria, Floral Park, New York. I mean, I'm not even sure I don't even know if it's close, but New York pizza and New York bagels can't compare. Not even close? I mean, no, it's the water. It's the water over here on this side of the city,
What's it, a good margarita slice, a Nona slice? What are you getting in Floral Park?
It's just, a couple of regular, and then you end up with a Sicilian. We don't get fancy with the toppings, and we don't overdo it. When I live in LA, a pie, they think you want an apple pie. You say a pie. Here, we all know what a pie is,
Well, in LA, they're just taking some bread and putting some sauce on it. They don't understand the love. I will take my Nino's margarita slice against anything you bring to the table anytime.
Hey, they are good. I have to give it to them. They are excellent.
Well, Chris, it's a great pregame stop, Nino's and Harrison. We appreciate your time and your thoughts and your insight. And all the best this weekend at Red Bull Arena, Sunday night against the Los Angeles Galaxy.
Thank you so much. Nino's, Red Bull Arena. Let's do it.
We got it in. Chris Armas, thank you so much for your time. I love talking with Chris Armas. I think he's one of those guys who, people don't always get the benefit of seeing what I get to see at the Red Bulls training facility every day. But you talk about somebody who is tireless in his work, in his development for younger players. I mean, frequently after training, he's out there with 3, 4, 5 guys who are just looking to get better, who are looking to put in the time. And, after a full day of prep, before practice, the video sessions, and then the actual training sessions, he still finds the energy and the time to go out there and to work with these guys for, this can go on for a half hour, 45 minutes after a training session. And Armas is someone who I've been able to see now over 2 years here with the Red Bulls, not just growing in a comfort level with the players, with the developmental side of things, but also just in the way that the players treat him and respect him. And I remember a few weeks ago talking with Aaron Long when Chris had to fill in for head coach Jesse Marsh for a couple days while Jesse was away in Europe. And I said, what does Chris do? What does he bring to the table that's different? And Aaron talked about his personality, about the sense of humor that Chris Armas has, and how he can blend that into training sessions and not just be a carbon copy of Jesse Marsh, but stand before the team respected. Certainly he's got the track record in MLS and with the national team to do so, but also be able to put his own stamp on the training sessions. And Armas is, to his credit, one of the all-time great jokesters in MLS history. He's a guy who always had a smile on his face before and after the games and a scowl during, because he wanted to go out there and win at all costs. But he brings that personality, that temperament as an assistant coach with the Red Bulls, And I think, quite frankly, he will be a tremendous asset to some organization someday as a head coach. There were reports earlier this season that when Real Salt Lake made their decision to move on from Jeff Cassar, that they had reached out to Chris Armas about possibly interviewing for the position. So this is a real asset to Jesse Marsh and his coaching staff. And I think, quite frankly, someday he's going to turn into one of the great head coaches in MLS history. So that was a lot of fun with Chris. I'm going to disagree with him about Long Island pizza or city pizza versus Jersey pizza, suburbs, all day, every day. We mentioned Nino's Pizzeria just a stone's throw away from the stadium in Harrison. Great slice. Go there a lot before the pregame, so stop on by sometime and make sure you buy me a slice, will ya? Well, this was a lot of fun. Looking forward to hearing from you and your feedback and your thoughts on this first ever installment of Red Bulls Insider.